It's Monday, August 4th, 2025. The other side of those revised jobs numbers, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is no more, and JD Vance is focused on what during the month of August? Next on the AM Update. We begin this Monday with this. The U.S. Office of Special Counsel is investigating former Special Counsel Jack Smith. Smith was tapped in 2022 by then Attorney General Merrick Garland to serve as Special Counsel regarding two probes pertaining to then former and then future President Donald Trump. While the specific scope of the investigation is not clear, the Office of the Special Counsel may be looking at whether Smith potentially violated the Hatch Act, which bars government employees from partaking in political activities. It's not a criminal investigation. The OSC is not the same as a special counsel appointed by an attorney general, as Smith was, but is an independent federal investigative and prosecutorial agency, according to its website. Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas recently asked the OSC to look into whether Smith illegally engaged in political activity to influence the 2024 election against Trump. The answer to that question is obviously yes. That's the entire point. That was always the entire point of Special Counsel Jack Smith and his lawfare that he engaged in against President Trump. Now he's under investigation for violations of the Hatch Act. Well, this was big news on Friday. President Trump fired the Bureau of Labor Statistics Commissioner hours after the agency reported that job growth in the U.S. had slowed to a near halt. In a Truth Social post that blew even more fire at Fed Chair Jerome Powell, Trump accused BLS Commissioner Erika McEntarfer of being a political appointee who was manipulating jobs data. He said, quote, "I was just informed our country's jobs numbers are being produced by a Biden appointee, the Commissioner of Labor Statistics, who faked the job numbers before the election to try and boost Kamala Harris's chances of victory. We need accurate jobs numbers. I've directed my team to fire this Biden political appointee immediately. She will be replaced with someone much more competent and qualified." A spokesperson for the Bureau of Labor Statistics told media, quote, "BLS can confirm Commissioner Erika McEntarfer was terminated today. Deputy Commissioner William Witrowski will serve as acting commissioner for BLS." So those jobs numbers, that really did happen. Revised down again, and this has been going on basically every month, just like it was during the Biden administration. We'll have some rosy numbers for the previous month's jobs, and then 2 months ago, the actual report from 2 months ago, the jobs report from 2 months ago, will be revised downward. There is another side to this, however, that we have to take into consideration, and that is the immigration front. The jobs report is somewhat of a consequence of the illegal alien labor purge. Foreign-born workers are down 4 months in a row, down 1.5 million since April. Native-born workers are actually up 383,000 in July. So that's the other side of those revised jobs reports. Yes, it is concerning, that's for sure. But you also have to take into account the number of illegal aliens who are just piecing out on this country, which is good news overall. Here's National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett on the jobs number and the White House's spin.
The fact is that when the data are unreliable, when they keep being revised all over the place, then there are going to be people that wonder if there's a partisan pattern in the data. And so if you look back to just a year ago, for example, there was another massive revision from the BLS, almost a million jobs down, that said that the Joe Biden jobs record was a lot worse than people thought. But we didn't get the downward revision until after Joe Biden had dropped out. And so once again, it made people think, what are they doing? I got to tell you that if I were running the BLS, I don't aspire to. If I were running the BLS and I had the biggest downward revision in 50 years, I would have a really, really detailed report explaining why it happened so that everybody really trusted the data. We had this move, that move, that move. We had a bunch of people get their responses in late or something like that. But instead, they have this little black box that moves the numbers around and makes people wonder, sometimes with partisan patterns. And so I think what we need is a fresh set of eyes at the BLS, somebody who can clean this thing up. And again, going back to 2015, when I was the keynoter along with Alan Greenspan, and how to modernize this place, I worried about how the changing economy, the modern economy, was going to move faster than their ability to measure, and urged Congress to give them a lot more money so that they could make these numbers better. And I think now I'm being kind of proven true that it's really the numbers are not keeping up with the economy.
That's National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett, who says that some antiquated practices over at the Bureau of Labor Statistics, along with potential skewing of data in a partisan manner could be to explain for what happened with the jobs report in July and the downward revision. So that's the spin from the White House, that these numbers are being cooked. And I have no doubt that they are. They were being cooked during the Biden administration. The question is it just the same cooking, or is it worse cooking? Is it a cooking of a different partisan stripe now that President Trump is in office? Well, this went down late last week at the White House. Here is Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt doubling down on the administration's policies when it comes to meatball surgery and chemical castration in the name of gender.
Elizabeth. Thanks, Caroline. Part of the settlement with Brown prohibits it from performing transgender procedures or prescribing hormone, puberty blockers, that type of thing. Will eliminating these types of procedures be a priority for the Trump administration in negotiations with other universities?
I can tell you that ending the chemical castration of children in our country is a priority of this administration. We've talked to many of these universities about it, but the president has also taken very strong action to cut off the funding for any medical institution in this country that provides those barbaric procedures. The Brown University agreement, since you brought it up, is yet another win to root out anti-Semitic behavior on our nation's college campuses and unlawful racial discrimination. Brown has agreed to no longer allow unlawful racial discrimination in admissions or university programming. They have agreed to provide access to all relevant data and information to rigorously assess compliance with its commitment to merit-based admissions, and they will pay $50 million over 10 years to state workforce development organizations that comply with anti-discrimination laws, supporting regional economic growth and career opportunities. Brown will also adopt the definitions of male and female from President Trump's executive order, defending women and gender ideology extremism for women's sports, programming, facilities, and housing. Brown will no longer perform gender reassignment surgeries on minors or prescribe them puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. And Brown will take steps to improve climate for Jewish students and combat anti-Semitism on their campus. This is yet another huge win for American students and for those who love our country and want to abide by our country's laws.
So there is White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt detailing the deal that has been struck between the Trump administration and Brown University, trying to end DEI on campuses. And there is Caroline Leavitt doubling down very capably on the White House's position against meatball surgery and chemical castration in the name of gender. Of course, Brown University, the latest Ivy League institution to capitulate, bend the knee to the Trump administration on the topic of DEI. In no uncertain terms there, that's the White House declaring victory in that case. Well, another victory, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting announced it's shutting down operations after Congress pulled its funding at the direction of President Trump. In a release on Friday, the CPB said it would begin an orderly wind down of its operations following the passage of the federal rescissions package last month. It said in a statement, quote, "For nearly 60 years, the CPB has carried out its congressional mission to build and sustain a trusted public media system that informs, educates, and serves communities across the country. Through partnerships with local stations and producers, CPB has supported educational content, locally relevant journalism, emergency communications, cultural programming, and essential services for Americans in every community." Just a bit outside. So, Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the funders, large funders of the NPR, of NPR, and things like PBS News, not exactly bipartisan or nonpartisan outlets. Quickly, this before the break, here's another video of probably the next mayor of New York, Zohran Mamdani, talking about the country of Israel.
For so many people, Israel is not a place, it is not a country, it's an idea.
Oh.
And you see that in so many politicians' answers to the questions around Israel, is their answers were written 20, 30 years ago. They speak to a reality that does not exist.
Right.
They pledge fealty to the idea of a two-state solution, irrespective of the fact that a second state for Palestinians is physically impossible because it's not even a contiguous piece of land in this moment between where Palestinians live. So that all tells us that there is this disconnect. And what these resolutions, thankfully, they are, as you said, not binding, but they also, to me, speak of a fear amongst political class across this country of a discourse that is rising that seeks to question this convention.
Yeah.
So there's Zoran Mamdani saying, I think that's what he's trying to communicate. He's criticizing people who think of Israel as an idea and not actually a place, saying, no, it's very much a place, and that's a problem. That's what he's saying. I love the double standard as well. America is not a place, it's an idea. Next breath, Israel is a place, it's not an idea. And it needs to be eliminated. That's the subtext from Zoran Mamdani there. That's the subtext. That's globalizing the Intifada, which he has tried to distance himself from in recent days. When we come back, J.D. Vance is focused on what during the month of August? Also a horrifying event out of Seattle. And one public university in my backyard is trying to skirt around the Trump administration's rules on DEI, but they got caught red-handed. I'll tell you about that next.
The other thing is there are stories that I am particularly focused on, in part just because you talk with your buddies about it. Like, I'm obsessed with the whole UFO thing. What's actually going on? What were those videos all about? What's actually happening? I haven't gotten to the bottom of it yet, but we're only 6 months in. We've been very busy. That's actually the August recess is in part me going to try to dive to the bottom of the whole UFO thing from last year.
There's J.D. Vance saying he's going to spend the month of August getting to the bottom of the UFO thing. He made those comments on the Ruthless podcast. I think he was just joking around. And it is true. I mean, this is somebody J.D. Vance's age, younger guy. This is a topic of conversation. This is water cooler topic. And if you are in the position of Vice President of the United States and you had access to some of this information, some of the answers to these questions, I'm sure a lot of your contemporaries are asking, why wouldn't you spend any free time you had getting to the bottom of it? He also talked to the Ruthless podcast guys about what it's been like 6 months in serving as vice president to President Trump.
So the vice president's residence, which is on the old Naval Observatory, is about 40 or so acres of completely private space. And then, outside of business hours, the Naval Observatory is empty. So we've got probably 130 acres of just our own space.
Wow.
And it's amazing for the kids. So an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, and then a 3-year-old, they've got plenty of room to run around. I mean, like for example, a couple weeks ago, there's like a running track there that's really nice. And I was running, it was sort of later in the day, and there were just lightning bugs everywhere. And it kind of hit me like, when was the last time the kids were just able to catch lightning bugs?
See nature.
Right? Yeah. Or fireflies. I think it's a regional thing. I think if you're further west, you call them fireflies. Anyway, so I take the kids out there in a golf cart, and they're just running around catching lightning bugs at 8:30 at night. Yeah. And my wife's like, it's time for bed. And I'm like, but they're having such a good time. It's just like moments like that you think you sort of have to give up, but you're on such a private area that it actually preserves a lot of normalcy.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
And like Usha and I can go outside and have a beer and just sit on the porch and watch. Like, my favorite thing growing up in southwestern Ohio, absolute favorite thing is like a summer thunderstorm. Yeah. And DC's got a lot of those. We've got this beautiful porch. We just go out, have a beer, watch it rain, the dog's hanging out. There are a lot of perks to this. And there are certainly, sacrifices and responsibilities, but I really do think that Tom Brady backup notwithstanding, it's pretty much the best job, because the flip side of that is, I like, the president encourages me to be involved in everything, and I've never felt like he's, shut me out or that I haven't been part of the core team. And that makes the job very cool. But fundamentally, the honest truth is he bears more of the weight of responsibility, right? He's the one who ultimately has to make these big decisions. He delegates and involves everybody. But that's an incredible burden. I just get to hang out and take all the credit when things go well. And then my kids have this beautiful house with a wonderful swimming pool in the middle of Washington, D.C. It's not a bad gig.
J.D. Vance telling the Ruthless podcast what it's been like, what life has been like first 6 months as vice president. It's a very deferential tone there from our vice president. An official at the University of Iowa's Division of Student Life openly admits in a new undercover video that she and others at the university are actively, quote, finding ways to operate around state and federal directives intended to end the practice of so-called reverse discrimination in the name of diversity, equity, and inclusion. The official, Dre Tinoco, assistant director for leadership and student organization development at the University of Iowa, pointed out in the undercover video recording how in early spring, the university's leaders began directing an end to DEI initiatives and policies. However, as Tinoco points out, that didn't stop her or others at the school from continuing to advance the discriminatory measures. She says, quote, we're essentially finding ways to operate around the ban, so that was our solution. We were like, okay, can't use that word. Okay, we're going to use a word like civic engagement. I think that's a lot of what we're doing. So there's an official, some pencil pusher or keyboard stroker at the University of Iowa, public university, just openly admitting on undercover video that she and others are figuring out ways to skirt around rules and regulations, both at the state and federal level, that deal with trying to end the practice of DEI. If it's going on at the University of Iowa, where else is it going on at? Now, Iowa has always been extremely liberal, and every single college campus, for the most part, especially public ones, are going to be extremely liberal. But I'm just telling you, reforms aren't going to cut it when it comes to academia. Reforms, rescissions aren't going to cut it. Excisions are the only thing that's going to cut it. People like her need to be made an example out of. You want your phony baloney job, then you're going to do as we say. Otherwise, sayonara. That's a nice unemployment line ticket you got there. Now there's this from Seattle. The lead pastor of a Seattle church is calling the fatal shooting of a 28-year-old parishioner outside a church service an assassination that, quote, should shock the conscience of the city. LeBron Givon was shot and killed Thursday outside the Pursuit Northwest's Seattle campus. Surveillance video shared with local media appears to show a gunman exiting a white vehicle and opening fire before returning to the car. That vehicle was later found abandoned and engulfed in flames. No arrests have yet been made. Pastor Russell Johnson said, quote, it's an unbelievable tragedy for our community to see one of our Pursuit Church members gunned down in this brazen, broad daylight assassination on church property. It's the worst day in public ministry I've ever had. While the motive is unclear, the Seattle Police Department said Thursday's shooting was likely a targeted attack. Johnson described Givon as a new member of the church who had recently turned his life around. Pastor Johnson said, quote, he got born again. His life was changing. He decided to get married. He changed the music he was making and wanted to sing songs that highlighted his testimony. It's gut-wrenching. It's horrendous. It's evil. It's wicked, end quote. The shooting took place in front of the church and other church members who were gathering for a young adult worship event. Johnson said the incident should shock the conscience of the city. What an absolutely horrifying story. Why isn't this national news? A targeted assassination right in front of a church, in front of church members of a church member. Well, maybe I answered my own question. Just unbelievable. What in the world is going on there? A targeted assassination. There was a car clearly seen pulling up, targeting this individual, and then they recover that car engulfed in flames, set ablaze a few hours later, and no arrests have been made. And now here's this. I caught this while driving around on Saturday. This is the Hall of Fame ceremony for the National Football League. The first inductee this year is Jared Allen of the Chiefs, Vikings, and one season with the Carolina Panthers. His entire speech was really, really good. Very well spoken. A lot better spoken of a guy than I thought he was. I knew he always spoke his mind. But here's just one clip from his Hall of Fame enshrinement speech, where he just discusses big picture things about life and who really gets the credit.
And to my wife, I'm reminded of what Tom Lanphier said when we were going through our premarital counseling. He said the two most important decisions you'll make in life is one, whether you follow Jesus or not, and two is who you marry. Because there's only two types of people. There's boat anchors who drag you down, and there's people who elevate you. And you are a true game elevator. You're one of the smartest people I know. I am in awe of you every single day, and I love you more than life itself. To my amazing daughters, Brindley and Lakeland, through this process, the word legacy has been talked about a lot. The hall often says they're here to tell my story. Well, I'm here to tell you too, you are my greatest accomplishments. When I get called home to heaven one day, if all they talk about is this gold jacket, my career, then I failed miserably as a father, a husband, and a friend. You two are my legacy. You are both so talented, and I cannot wait to see what you decide to do and to conquer this world. So always put Christ first, find your why, dream big dreams, and always pursue greatness in whatever you do. Thank you all, and may God bless you all.
That is now NFL Hall of Famer Jared Allen, and his entire speech was really good. Some laughs, some big picture comments, some really good, incisive commentary as well. And it was not so much, you wouldn't have known that this was anything about football when you started listening to his comments. And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. That is a guy who understands what is really the priority in life. We're heading into football season now. And believe me, I'll just be honest with you. There are some times when I, in the past, have probably put a little bit too much of a priority on football. But yet here is a Hall of Famer who takes time out of one of the biggest moments in his life, takes basically the entire speech, if you listen to the whole thing, to really put into focus what really is truly important in life. You just heard him there in his enshrinement speech, wearing the gold jacket for the first time. The adulation of a crowd and millions on television. And he's putting the focus where it really belongs, on his faith and his family. I know that sounds cliche, but the reason cliches are cliches is because there's always a grain of truth. That should be a challenge to every male in this audience, or any audience. If that guy, who has made millions of dollars playing a game, and playing at the top of the game, so much so that he gets inducted, one of fewer than 400 people in the Hall of Fame, if he knows the real priorities in life, what are the rest of us doing? I think that's a really important message, inspiring and challenging on a Monday morning. That's going to do it. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntire, and this is the AM Update.